A guitarist's overdrive tone is such a foundation of your overall guitar sound that it's understandable why there's so many overdrive pedals available, but how many overdrive pedals do you actually need? I'm going to take you through some different setups, starting with the very simplest ones, and take you through what I feel are the limitations for me on those simpler setups and what problems can be solved as you add more overdrive pedals, until we get to some fairly complex setups. So hopefully this video will help you decide whether you're using the right amount and type of overdrive pedals for what you're doing. Let's first just mention the straight into amp, no pedals option quickly. So it's beautifully simple and it can sound really great, but I do have my issues with it. So you dial in a moderately overdriven sound into the amp. Something like that, and then roll down the volume control for a lightly overdriven sound. And then for your clean sounds, just roll it down that little bit. And if you use your tone controls and have a Gibson control layout, you can get even more variations in the tone, which I've covered in a lot of depth in another video. There are two main issues that I have with this setup though, and I found these mostly when I've been gigging with functions bands and I need access to a wide range of tones. Issue number one is that I simultaneously want both more and less gain available. So I want more gain for those super saturated, heavily overdriven sounds, especially for like lead solos and stuff like that, where you get lots and lots of sustain and saturation. I find I can't really get that from the amp alone. The other thing is that I also want a cleaner sound, you know, using the volume control like that on an overdriven amp, there's always a little bit of grit there, which can be really nice, but sometimes I want it to be totally squeaky clean. Issue number two is that I find there's a lack of control over the overall volume level. So with the loud sounds, they're always going to be overdriven. It's hard to get a really loud, clean sound that cuts through the mix. And for a lot of jazz and pop songs and stuff like that, that's the kind of sound I need or want. The other thing is that if I want a super overdriven sound that lays back in the mix, it's hard to get that. It's going to interrupt with the vocals really easily, that heavily overdriven sound, because it's so loud. So I just find it a bit limiting having all your loudest sounds always being heavily overdriven and all the quieter sounds always being less overdriven. So something that gives me access to a completely clean tone again is just using an overdrive pedal into a clean amp. I'm using the Boss OD3 here, which is one of my favorites. It's a nice amp type, full range type overdrive. So I can get all the same sounds that I did before using the overdrive pedal and the volume control instead of just the amp. But now when I turn the pedal off, I've got access to that clean sound with zero overdrive. So that increases your options for the clean sounds, but maybe you want more options for your overdriven sounds. Maybe you want to be able to get from the kind of moderately overdriven sound we've got on the OD3 to a really heavily saturated overdrive sound that's almost verging on distortion, you know, really heavy. For that, I like to put an overdrive pedal in front of the main overdrive pedal, in this case the OD3. You can use a mid-focused overdrive pedal like this Ibanez Tube Screamer. That will make it less likely for you to get a muddy low end or a shrill high end. Or you can use another full range overdrive pedal like this OCD by Fulltone, and that just gives a different sound. Having the two together and having three overdrive pedals like this means you've got the choice of the two. So now we're getting some nice cascading gain stages with the overdrive from each pedal kind of mixing with the other. And we've got a wider range of gain options from completely clean to really super saturated heavy overdrive as well. But we've still not got total control of the overall volume. When I want that, I put an overdrive pedal after the main overdrive pedal, in this case the OD3. So I've put a blues driver after our main overdrive pedal, the OD3, and I've set it to low gain because I don't want to add any extra saturation or gain that much. I more want to just add overall volume. You could use a clean boost here as well. And now I can get a clean sound that's completely clean but really loud and can cut above the mix. And I can also get a more moderately overdriven sound that I'm getting from the OD3, but boosted in volume, so I can play some kind of lightly overdriven lead and not get lost in the mix. I can rise above the mix with that sound. Probably the only thing I'm missing now is the ability to play something really heavily overdriven, but be able to simultaneously like sit back in the mix and have the volume lowered. So it's less common this, but you do get it in a lot of pop tracks where the guitar is really distorted but back in the mix, so it doesn't get in the way of the vocal or anything like that. It makes it sound sort of synth-like to me. You know, it's a less natural sound because it's so distorted but yet very quiet. But sometimes you need it. For this, I use an overdrive pedal after the OD3, the main overdrive pedal again. And I'm going to use that sound we were getting of the super saturated overdrive sound of the OD3 being boosted by another overdrive pedal in front of it. And I'm going to pad it with the new overdrive pedal, the Marshall Blues Breaker pedal. So I've actually got it set for a volume reduction. There's different ways you could do this. We've got so many pedals going on now that there's lots of different options, but this is the way I've chosen to do it. If that's not enough pedals for you, then you might fancy some different flavors for the all-important main overdrive pedal. I did this for a while with these Catalinbread pedals when I was doing function band work. And while I don't think the audiences maybe notice the subtle differences between the overdrive pedals that much, I could certainly hear it, and it made the gigs more fun for me and made me a little bit more inspired. And I think that comes across in your performances when you have that. So if anyone tells you have too many overdrive pedals, you know, use as many as you want, I think. As long as you're having fun, just go for it. But with these Catalinbread pedals, not only do they sound subtly different, but you can obviously set them slightly differently as well. So this Dirty Little Secret is supposed to be a Marshall type sound. I've set it to have the gain slightly higher than the others and for it to be a bit more bass heavy. The 5F6, which is supposed to be a Fender Bassman type style sound, I've set that for moderate gain with a nice bright clear high end to it. The Formula 55 is for lower gain stuff. know there's a lot of options for stacking and combining overdrive pedals that I didn't cover here, but these are just some of the fundamentals that I think of when I'm using lots of overdrive pedals together. Let me know in the comments how you like to do it, and if you found this video useful, think about liking the video and maybe subscribing to the channel if you want to see more videos like this exploring guitar sounds.